Welcome everyone to another episode of Tales of the LGBTQ+. My name is Douglas Parsons. To be able to talk to two people who had a rough go of it this year, you would think due to COVID. However, they've excelled in this year of being Emperor and Empress 45 of the Imperial Sovereign Court of the Wild Rose. Their names are Carrie and Tanner Steele, and they are tonight's guests. I'm looking forward to getting to know them and hearing all about this crazy year for them. Before we turn the microphone to them, though, I do want to acknowledge that I am coming to you from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, and work on Treaty 6 and Métis ancestral lands. The traditional meeting grounds, gathering place, and traveling route to the Cree, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, Métis, Dene, and Nakota Sioux. We acknowledge all the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit whose footsteps have marked the lands for centuries. This is where we will strive to honor and transform our relationships with each other. If you are a brand new listener to Tales of the LGBTQ+ tonight, welcome. This is a podcast, a little podcast that keeps growing. This is a way for us to share our stories of the remarkable rainbow community that we proudly are part of. It's where we talk about the challenges, we celebrate the success, and we simply let you in on the stories, the fantastic stories that have never been written down before on paper, but here through their words, you get to experience it as well. So thank you. If you are a returning listener, thank you as well. I have to remind you right now, make sure you press subscribe if you're here on YouTube, or if you're on one of our audio podcast sites, such as Apple Podcasts or Spotify, make sure you click, leave a review, star ratings, all of that helps. And even more than that, perhaps, is word of mouth. I give you complete permission to send a link for tonight's show or one of our archive shows to one of your friends that you feel would love to be able to listen to the stories that are being told. Nothing better than making sure that our LGBTQ+ stories are out there, heard, and celebrated. So thank you so much. Now, with all that, let's get back to tonight's guests, Emperor and Empress 45, Tanner Steele and Carrie. This is my first time meeting both of them. I've seen them in the distance. I've seen them grow in their positions from when they just started to now, and to be able to see the growth and maturation and the success that anyone has, but in particular, tonight's two guests. If you haven't been watching the last 2 weeks, we've been talking about the history of the Imperial Sovereign Court of the Wild Rose, 46 years of charity work, celebration for the Alberta, Canada, LGBTQ+ communities. There's been a lot of firsts for this Imperial Sovereign Court of the Wild Rose. The very first Native American Empress, Millicent. The very first Black Empress, Gracie Spoon. Canada's first straight female Empress, Mother Jean. Canada's first female Imperial Crown Prince, Pepe. That's just some of the major accomplishments that took place. And perhaps my favorite story of all, the Imperial Sovereign Court of the Wild Rose is the only title, the only crown that had taken part in the Alberta legislature in full regalia. The only other person who had that honor was Queen Elizabeth. So pretty damn cool. Tonight's guests. Introducing first, Her Most Imperial and Sovereign Majesty, the Pretty in Pink Empress of Attitude, anyhow and all that ass, Empress 45, Carrie Mockingbird, DuPoint, Pump Diamonds, Steele, B.D. DeWitt. And her Emperor. He is the recipient of the Royal Order of Jose I, His Imperial Sovereign Majesty, the Trantastic Superboy Emperor of Puppies and Pokeballs, He's Mask for Mask, Emperor 45 of Edmonton, and all of Northern Alberta. Please welcome to Tales of the LGBTQ+, her Empress, Carrie Dewey, and His Honor, Tanner Steele. Welcome to Tales of the LGBTQ+.
Thanks. Hi, thanks for having us.
It's fantastic to have you here, especially in this year of COVID. I'm just intrigued with what you were able to do this past year, because you took on an insurmountable task, really, a task that many people would not have taken that on. Before we get to that, though, there may be some people tuning in tonight looking for the majestic Carrie Dewey. I just want to say right now that Carrie is doing me a favor when it comes to the time, because I have an early bedtime now these days. And how long does it take you, Carrie, to put yourself into drag?
It depends on who you ask. Some people will tell you not all that long. If you ask other people, they say I take 24 hours. It takes, I like to take my time. I enjoy it. So like 3-4 hours or so from like start to finish. That's like hopping in the shower and then, having my husband tie my corset and get dressed. But
yeah, it makes sense to me. I remember watching Kitty LeBear / Dwayne Home get ready, and it took 3-4 hours as well too. You would think longer to have to beat that face. I say that because I have to plug Dwayne every single episode of Tales of the LGBTQ+. So, Carrie, thank you for being here tonight, and thank you for accommodating our time as well.
Well, thank you for excusing my mustache.
Hey, it's all good with me. So, before we get into the Imperial Sovereign Court of the Wild Rose, let's start with both of you and your journey. Without the crowns, without the titles, who is Tanner Steele and who is Carrie Dewey? Let's start with you, Tanner.
Sure. So by day, my name is Tanner Gradashko, and I work as a plumber. And then by night, I am Tanner Steele with the Imperial Sovereign Court of the Wild Rose, also as a staff member at Evolution Wonder Lounge. I am a trans mask Métis individual who was born and raised in the Edmonton area. And yeah, I don't know what else you want to know about me. I'm not a super fascinating person outside of that.
Give me some time. I will find those moments in there. It's either that or I'll charge you for therapy, for the therapy session later on. One of the two.
Sounds good.
It's fun for me. What about yourself, Carrie?
Outside of drag, my name's Lewis Hutchinson, and I actually work in the fascinating world of insurance. Just, selling insurance policies is fantastic. I've been doing drag for 12 years now. And I've been involved in the court for pretty much that entire time. I moved to Edmonton when I was 18 from a little town in BC. I had to get out of there, and on a whim moved up to Edmonton, and I've been here ever since. And it's, it's where I've made my home and my family. So it's been pretty fantastic.
I think it's fascinating because we hear a background in plumbing, a background in insurance, and those would not be the first thoughts that came to mind when talking to somebody who at night wears majestic gowns, glittery suits, put crowns on their head. So what was the fascination, or what was the impetus for exploring this world?
For me, drag started as a way to express my masculinity. I started drag really early into my transition. I think my first performance was like 5 months after starting my hormones. And that's where drag had started for me. And then with the court, it started 3 months after I kind of really hopped into drag and started performing a lot. The court was putting on their annual amateur competition. And I was like, heck yeah, I'm an amateur. I'm going to run for it. And I felt terrible beating 2 teenagers at a drag competition, but I won, and they told me that my only requirement was to show up for my step down the next year. And I'm like, even better. I don't have to do anything. Sounds great. That all changed really quickly in Rain 40 with Myra and Eust, and she asked me to volunteer for some events, and I dove headfirst into volunteering for this organization. Like, I don't think I missed a show for like 3 straight years where I wanted to do something. So that's where it all started. Thinking that I was just going to run for a title for fun, and now here I am.
Okay, we're going to delve into that. We're going to get back into that there, because I sense some neurosis in there. So yes, yes. Carrie, what about yourself? You mentioned that you grew up in BC, a small town. Were you shown drag when you were in BC, or was that something here when you arrived in Edmonton?
Not really. I mean, like, my first kind of like actual peek into anything like that before I moved here was like late night television. I don't know if you remember, the ones that they would air like 2 a.m. Where they'd have like, I don't know, like, sex workers and so on and so forth. And it just kind of was in there. Then, like music videos, like Christina Aguilera's I Am Beautiful, all that kind of stuff was like, but I didn't understand it when I lived there. And then I moved to the city, and I lived here for about a year, just kind of doing my own thing. I didn't really know anybody, and I started going to Buddy's because that was like the bar to go to when I moved here. And I actually met my now husband there, and we were dating at the time or whatever, and he was feeding me drinks. And like on the other side, if anybody remembers Buddy's, they had like the one bar that was like up against the wall, and then the stage was across the bar on the other side. And there was a drag show there, and I had never seen a drag show in my life. And up on stage walks like these like ethereal women, and I was enamored. It was Tequila Mockingbird and Vonda DuPont, and they were just doing one of their regular shows, and I was just in awe of them, and I had no idea how to talk to them. I had no idea what anything was about it, and I got to become friends with them relatively quickly. They were friends with my husband and stuff, and then I begged Tequila to put me in drag. I begged her for I think about 2 weeks, and she kept saying no, and then finally she decided to say, yeah, like, okay, fine, we'll do it. And I was like, all in, like, yeah, let's do this. And she put me in drag for the first time, and I hated every second of it. It was the worst experience of my life. Not of my life, but it was awful. I had no idea what I was expecting, and I don't know what I thought I was expecting, but I did it. I did the thing, whatever. We went and like, went to the couple bars that were open at the time, and I was like, I'm never going to do this again. I tried it, whatever, it's fine. And then about 3 months later, I got the itch to do it, and I was like, huh, that's weird. So Tequila put me in drag again, and this time I did my own makeup, and I was very unfortunate. It looked like somebody had punched me in my eyes, and that was my makeup and pink lipstick, and I thought I was just, yeah. Anyway, so from that point, the rest was kind of history. I was hooked on drag, and it's been, how many years now of me doing drag and stuff and trying new things and all that kind of stuff. And I got involved in the court relatively quickly after getting into drag because of Vonda and Tequila. And I've been, doing whatever I can ever since.
I should put a shameless plug in here as well. For those of you who have listened to previous episodes of Tales of the LGBTQ+, that name Tequila Mockingbird may have done something, and you might have gone, oh, I've heard that before. Tequila Mockingbird, Godiva, and Vanity Fair has taken part in a single episode where we put 3 queens together to talk about their history, their stories, and there are videotaped performances there as well. So after tonight, after you've listened to this episode, delve back and look at that episode as the majesty that is Tequila Mockingbird. Both of you mentioned with your answers that there was like, oh, okay, this is going to be a one-time thing and that's it. I didn't like it, or hey, I don't have to do anything for another year. So Carrie, you got that itch again to get back into drag. I'm curious because you're like, I want to do my own makeup. So there's that, I want to look like the person I believe I am underneath here, or make my own visage. But I'm going to come to you, Tanner. So they came to you with charity work. Now, was that a guilt trip, or was that something that you were like, yes, this is what I want to do at this time of my life?
So the timing of that was actually really, it worked out really well. At the time, I was working as the youth worker for the Pride Center of Edmonton. So I had heard, like, I was obviously a title holder within the organization, but I didn't really know anything about it. And at the time, Mickey Wilson was the executive director, and he was just like, hey, like, if they're asking you to volunteer, even just do it as a Pride Center representative, just because, you know, they've given us lots of money in the past. We like to collaborate. So it started as, of course, I wanted to do the charity work because they asked me to do it, but it started kind of as like a work obligation, which is terrible to say now, but that's where it kind of started. But the more I kind of showed up for events, got involved, got to know the people, that's what really drew me in. And obviously LJ drawing me in was probably the biggest thing. So
yeah. And LJ would be LJ Steele. We mentioned LJ briefly in our last episode of Tales of the LGBTQ+, a major force within the Imperial Sovereign Court of the Wild Rose. Unfortunately, he is no longer with us, and today is a day of memory for many people. So, Carrie, do you have a glass in front of you at all?
I don't, actually.
That's okay. Well, you can lift your eyebrows, but Tanner, there we go, to LJ. Hey, before we move on to other things, Tanner, the two teenagers that you beat out, did you ever see them get involved in drag afterwards?
The one, no. The other one is a tip collector at our Coronation this year. So they haven't really performed a whole lot since then, but yeah, I felt really guilty about it at the time. I didn't know that there was going to be like a 13-year-old and a 16-year-old kid in this competition against me, and I was 21. I felt really guilty about it.
Hey, they obviously knew what they were doing. And hey, a vote is a vote. So there's nothing wrong with that. Why was it so important for you the second time for you to put on your own makeup that night?
Part of it, I guess, was more in due to Tequila being my drag mother. Like, she was like, if you're going to do this, you need to learn how to do it. Like, I'm not going to paint your face every single time. So she definitely helped. And it was more important for me to learn how to be able to do it, because I wanted to, like, if I'm going to do this, like, kind of like she said, I suppose, but if I'm going to do this, I want to be able to do it myself, and I want to do it my way, how I want it to be, and not be an imposition, thanks to anxiety, to other people to do drag. So
it makes perfect sense. Tanner, we hear a lot about the Empresses, and the Empresses very much get that visual notoriety. What do you see as the role of the Emperor when it comes to the court system?
Actually, it's funny because I watched Ron and Leia's interview, and Ron had said like the Emperor's role was essentially to be a gentleman and to fetch drinks for the Empress and fix her train and escort her and stuff like that. And in a lot of senses, I do think that an Emperor should do that, just because we're not in heels. So to go in and have to run around to get drinks and to fix their train, like, for sure. Carrie can attest to the fact that, especially when we're out of town, I try my best to be a perfect gentleman. But that is definitely not the case with this day and age with the court. I think an Emperor's role is to be equal to their Empress. They need to be able to organize and put on events. They need to be a presence within the community. If they feel they have the performance skills, that they should be able to perform just as much as their Empress. The role of an Emperor is to be a fundraising captain with their Empress throughout the year. I think they need to have just as much of an active role as the Empress.
So not just the arm candy.
Yeah, not just the arm candy.
Good. Hey, Carrie, with drag, you mentioned the second time you had that itch. So then what was it then the second time or the third time where you were like, this is for me and this is what I want to do? What was that switch?
I don't know exactly where it like kind of came from. Because like I said, like the first time I was like, oh, this is not for me. And then all of a sudden I wanted to try it again. And I guess I walked into it thinking, oh, I'm going to try it again. And then it just didn't stop. And it was like, okay, yeah, this is what I want to do. I enjoy doing drag. I like everything that comes along with it. The attention, of course, but like also, the expression and the ability to, put this on and have this kind of like armor that I get to put on myself and, walk out of the house in and extend like the type of person that I am in a larger scale.
This isn't necessarily yourself wanting to be a woman and yourself wanting to show that because that's your authentic self. This is part of yourself. Am I correct with that, or for you is that different?
Oh no, that's quite right actually. There was a time and some people that I've spoken to before have experienced it. You're not quite sure why you like doing it, and you have those questions pop up in your head. And myself, I did some soul searching. It didn't take me very long to realize that I enjoyed the art of it, and I'm a relatively feminine guy as it is, and it gave me a way to express my femininity in a more secure way. Growing up as a feminine kid and all that kind of stuff, and always being like the one that was picked on and all that kind of stuff. It kind of, like I said, it gave me like an armor and a way to do it in a way where somebody's not going to look at me and be like, oh, that's, that's a man more, you know what I mean? Or tease me for being feminine, where that's kind of what I was trying to do. But it wasn't really ever any sort of, past perhaps a small period in time where I wasn't sure, like I didn't have the answer, and I was trying to figure out the answer as to why I enjoyed doing drag. But yeah, it's definitely more of an extension of myself. It's kind of like hybridized with myself as it is now. Like the more that I've done it, and the longer it's gone on, and it's made me much more comfortable in my.
Tanner, you mentioned before that you delved in this quickly after becoming your authentic self. Becoming Tanner, using he, him pronouns. How has being a emperor or a prince, a duke, or being just part of the Imperial Sovereign Court of the Wild Rose helped you in your own journey?
I think for the most part, it gave me a sense of purpose. Prior to transitioning, I really was not a part of the queer community. Like me and my ex-girlfriend would attend drag shows every once in a while, and that's what kind of got me interested in drag. But the court definitely, it gave me a sense of purpose, and it gave me a place to belong in the community. Even after transitioning and starting in the drag scene, still didn't feel like I had met my people yet. And then doing the charity work and being around like the Steele family and the Pump Diamond family and seeing all these people that I could relate with, definitely it gave me a sense of hope.
And that's all we need, we've got our blood families. Sometimes our blood families work out in some ways, but then what's great about being part of our rainbow community is that we get to have a chosen family, and we are in complete control of choosing who's going to be part of that. And that's a superpower upon itself. And it's great that you were able to realize that so early. It took me until my mid-30s to figure that out. And now, yay, I'm great, but it took a while. So I'm really happy to hear that you were able to find that safety and that comfort. Tanner, your first name, Steele, coming from LJ Steele. No.
So
maybe not.
funny story. Steele didn't come from LJ.
What?
Yeah. So when I started drag, even Tanner is changed. So when I started drag, I went by the drag name Harvey Steele. But well before I knew LJ, well before I knew anything about the court, when I was picking a name, I was like, Steele sounds tough. So that's why I picked it. And the first time I ran for a title within the organization, the amateur title, LJ was a judge for it. And he came up to me after the competition ended, and he said to me, if you drop the last E off of your last name, I'll give you 20 bonus points. And I looked LJ in the eye, this guy I didn't know, and I told him to go fuck himself because I was not changing my name for this guy I didn't know. Anyways, after that moment, I didn't get the bonus points. I still won. Didn't need them. And we started talking after that because LJ was like, you're not walking around with my name and not knowing how this works, like how this organization works, how my family works. I never officially got inducted into the Steele family house. The plan was that he would officially make me a member of the family after I stepped up as prince, and unfortunately he had passed away 8 weeks prior to that happening. So I will always be known as the illegitimate child of the Steele family. So a fun little history lesson for you on my name.
Yeah, I always assumed it was part of the family. So that's great to hear. Hey, Carrie, I love when queens do something with their name that's witty, that's something that's different. So yes, I need to find out the genesis of Carrie Douay.
Funnily enough, Tequila gave it to me. When we were kind of planning for me to do drag for the first time, she's like, okay, well, we need a name. Like, do you have any ideas? And I was like, yeah, I have all these ideas. And I was like, oh, let's make it like dirty. This is going to be great. And I was like, Luba Cockwell and all these things, just terrible names. And everyone I shot at her, she'd be like, no, that's awful. No, that's awful. No, that's awful. And she's like, give me a minute and I'll start coming up with names. And so she started sending me different names, and I don't remember all of them, but one of them was, I worked for Buffalo Jeans at the time. So she's like, maybe you could be Buffy Low Jeans. And I was like, no. And then she came up with Carried Away. And I was like, oh, well, that one might work. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, I'll take that one. If I hate it, if I don't want it, I'll change it later. It's not a big deal. But I never did. And I've always used Carried Away. It's always been my drag name. And I don't think I'll ever change it ever. I mean, it's too late now. Like, it's too late now. But yeah, it's one that was gifted to me by my drag mother. And yeah, I never changed it.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic, especially the spelling of the last name. For the people through audio and not seeing us on YouTube, the last name is Douay, capital D-U apostrophe capital W-A-Y. So some Southern United States mint julep regalness that goes with that.
Yeah, giving you some Blanche Devereaux.
Oh, we all need some Blanche Devereaux. So what year was it when both of you became part of the court? Which year was that?
For me, it was 2015, so the tail end of Reign 39, but going into Reign 40. Like, I think I stepped up as Mr. Amateur 8 weeks prior to Coronation, so it's been 6 years.
I had been involved for, oh my goodness, I think since 2011. I ran for my first actual title, which was Ms. Gay, in 2014. Yes, 2014. And I won that year with Venus Envy and Nikki Nottingham. So that was my first official title in the court.
And both of you didn't just go from a, dare I say, lower title, like an introductory title, to Empress and Emperor. You built up as well. And so for both of you, did you do Duke, Duchess, Prince, Princess, and then Emperor, Empress, or am I incorrect with that?
So I personally went Mr. Amateur, Mr. Gay 29, Prince 42, and then Emperor 45.
Okay.
And I did Ms. Gay 27, and then I did Princess 40, and then I did Duchess 42, and then Empress.
Yeah, so you've definitely built through the system. So were those previous years training to going towards the title itself? And if those times before you stepped up?
Yeah, I'd say yes. 41, Reign 41, when I was Mr. Gay with Kenya Dewitt and Mel Tricks, definitely gave a lot of insight as to the actual work that needed to go into the organization. Like, I think me and Kenya were at every event selling 50-50, putting in ridiculous amount of hours into the organization. And then as Prince, getting to work under Kenya and Trey, I think definitely gave a really good stepping ground to learn what needed to be done to become an emperor later down the road.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I mean, there's some people who, go for the big hat, as they call it, right off the bat, and that's absolutely okay. It's whichever path a person chooses to take. For myself, I do think that having like a lower house title, like the gay title especially, definitely helps to kind of get your feet wet, and you kind of understand the things that are like not just attending a show and like checking out what's going on, but like Tanner said, selling 50-50. I think my gay year I sold 50-50 almost every show, and things like that, and really kind of getting an idea. And then with titles like upper house titles like Duchess and Princess, getting to work under fantastic monarchs that we did, and getting to be around the rest of the monarchs as they were reigning, that were amazing. Like, you get to see so many different ways of doing things, so many different ideas, but also just how much they care about what they're doing. So it was nice.
I'm also like a firm believer that if you want to run for a monarch position, that it's best to start kind of with that train. Like, run for a lower house title, get your feet wet, work your way up to gay, where you have a little bit more responsibility, work your way into an upper house. Mainly because a lot of people who run from or go straight from the lower house straight for the big hat, they only see part of how the system works, like how we go about organizing things. And I think taking those multiple steps up is super beneficial in the learning process, so that you are best prepared to take on this role.
I also think it gives you an appreciation for what you're coming into. Like, having people have a lower house title or whatever else, lower house, upper house, whatever you want to call it, putting in the work ahead of time gives you the perspective as to what's going to be expected, and what people are going to be expecting of you, because you're going to kind of get almost like a front row seat to it.
Let me ask you a question now. We've had the history of the court for the last 2 episodes, and I know that there have been some viewings of it. Tanner, were there anything that surprised you about what you heard in those 2 episodes?
In all honesty, not a lot of it surprised me, mainly because I've been a big part of my journey to Emperors. I really wanted to learn the history of where the organization started. The comment from Ron about Emperor's roles kind of had thrown me off a little bit when I was like, really? That's definitely not what we do now. It was interesting to see the transition from when it became more of like a social organization, where they did like a little bit of fundraising, compared to when it turned into this legitimate business, between like 30 and 33 and stuff like that, or 33. Because I've only ever known the organization as the strict rule-following, hardcore charity aspect. So it was really interesting to hear all these stories of what things were like in the past, like all the interesting, fun parties that they had, and especially reading like the Edmonton Queen as well. Just seeing this very different side of the organization that I'm just not used to.
Yeah, it didn't come up in any of those episodes, and I'm not sure because I've talked to Ron Byers so many times recently, and I am still fascinated, or I giggle to learn that the term drag race that we just kind of assume is a RuPaul thing. Drag race started in Edmonton with them behind the bar on an afternoon and doing their own drag races, and they actually called it drag race. So it's fascinating just to find out how thought were coined by some were actually belonging to others. And so it's that type of history that I know I crave. Hey, speaking of which, both of you are aware that in 2020, this big thing called COVID took place, right? Both of you were aware of that, right?
Very aware.
I was completely oblivious. I was very aware.
Well, and I say that jokingly because the Imperial Sovereign Court of the Wild Rose has their coronation and step down in August, and it goes until the next August. So there was 5 months of this abyss. So knowing that both of you were going to at some point step up to become emperor or empress, or at least put your names into the hat, why this year? Why?
I mean, Tanner and I talked about this for a long time before we did it.
Like since 42.
Yeah, and I mean, like Empress is 45. Like weirdly, was I've been talking about doing 45 for 10 years. So since like 35, I've been like, yes, this is the year I'm going to do it. And then it just showed up, and I was like, oh shit, okay. But Tanner and I had been talking about it for quite a few years, and it was kind of always just that's what we were going to do. And when it kind of came time, it was like, is it actually going to happen? And we just said, well, what's the worst that's going to happen? It's going to be like another 3 months, and then we'll be doing live shows again, or it won't last all that long. Well, joke's on us, but
it was an interesting process getting to being able to run.
Yes.
When COVID hit, they canceled Coronation. They were like, we're not going to do anything. The college is going to have a discussion. And the original plan was me and Carrie were told, they knew we were going to run. We weren't really required about it. But they told us, we're just going to do a regent year. We're going to have past monarchs just fill the role, get through the year, and we'll talk about it for next year. And me and Carrie pretty much just said, okay, like we get it. If you guys need a prince and princess, we'll take on the role, and then we can get some practice in prior to us running for Emperor and Empress. And it was 4 weeks prior to our normal college review that we got a message from our current the college president at the time, being like, so if we changed our minds and decided to let you guys campaign, would you be okay with that? And we're like,
yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. Like, let's rewind, contact our prince and princess candidates and say, never mind, this is happening now, and restart our entire planning process from a completely new perspective with COVID. Sure, why not? Let's do it.
And go ahead, Tanner.
No,
sorry.
go ahead, Carrie.
I was saying, when we were going in for the interview, like before we walked in, Tanner and I walked in with a COVID plan and a non-COVID plan. And like the COVID plan was like basically everything scheduled online. Like we had planned for it, but didn't expect it to be that way. And it was very detailed. But we had the COVID plan and the non-COVID plan. And I guess now we're kind of experiencing a little bit of the non-COVID plan, but
A little bit.
we had our first in-person show in how many months? Not too long ago. So.
Well, and this would be a good time to mention that a lot of the charity work is through those live shows with different draws and things that you can do through a silent auction. At least that's the way it always was. Mm-hmm. So through this year, what did you learn about fundraising in itself? Is fundraising going to change now, or are we going to go back to the old way that it had always been before?
So I think things will change, but not drastically. We learned a lot throughout COVID. We learned a lot about technology. We learned a lot about people's generosity, especially when they can access something that they normally couldn't access. And so some things will change. We ran silent auctions were still super successful for us this year. We just ran them on Facebook. And then just made a deal that if you were not in town, that you just paid for the shipping. And I would say that probably 70% of our money came from silent auction sales alone. Like, it was huge for us this year. And I'm hoping that future reigns find a way to have live in-person auctions, but find a way to tie them in online so that if people can't be at the event, whether it be they're out of town or it's an accessibility issue, that they can still participate and still support the organization. So there will definitely be changes. COVID did great things for the organization, and terrible things, because it's not like we like sitting at home on our couch every weekend. But it's definitely changed things for the better.
Carrie, do you agree with everything that Tanner was saying?
I definitely agree. Like you said, the silent auctions were like, they were instrumental. Like, they did so much for us, and we're so grateful for that. There's definitely going to be some hybridization, like, as to what we're doing and how we're going to do things. Like, the implementation, even more so, of online ticketing and how we can do that, and like online raffles, and it opened up so many doors, mainly because that was the only door that wasn't locked, but it opened up so many extra doors for us to be able to access markets, or not markets, but access groups and areas that kind of got overlooked or weren't really even thought about at the time. And I mean, the internet's been great. It's let us reach so many more people now. So,
and let's give a shout out to Tanner. You just mentioned generosity, and so let's give a shout out. And I'm going to put a name and a website on the screen, and I'll mention it to everybody else. But Tanner, afterwards, if I can let you talk a few minutes about this. So Northern Chicken, which you can find at their website, www.northchickenyeg.com. Why was it important for Matthew and everyone at Northern Chicken to get a shout out here tonight?
So Northern Chicken really stepped up for us this year. It started where they contributed some very high value silent auction items for us. And it turned into pretty much anytime we needed something, Matt was there ready to go with it. We, a couple times in a show, we're like, oh, we're at $2,200 raised, or $2,250 or whatever. We like even numbers, and he would just throw us $250. He would promote all of our events. When we did a collaboration with Alley Cat Brewery, he was the first business to contact them and be like, get me this beer, help us, like, let us help raise money for this organization. They were instrumental in a lot of what we were able to pull off this year, and I couldn't give them more than enough credit for all their help.
Again, we'll raise a glass to Matt and everyone at Northern Chicken, coming through for the community.
Go eat their food. It's really good.
Oh, so good. So good. My husband is kind of finicky a little bit when it comes to food. We settled into the Mary Brown's world of chicken, going, oh, this is elevated from KFC. And then I had Northern Chicken a few years ago, and I'm like, Jared, who's my husband, we've got to go. And finally, we had permission to go. And good Lord, I haven't heard that much moaning since. Well, anyways, the next question here is, what they do at Northern Chicken, it's fantastic. So please check them out. Their physical store is
124th Street and 107th Avenue.
Perfect. Now that I'm a south side or far south side person, I forget my downtown routes, etc.
I just recently moved within 5 blocks of Northern Chicken, and it's been a problem.
It's a good problem to have.
It's very true.
It's a good problem. So this year, how many online shows were you able to present?
I think we did roughly one a month. with a couple months being 2. So I would say we put on 10 to 12.
Yeah. That sounds about right. Because we had all of our
That's
pageants.
fantastic.
All of our pageants online, and then we did that's
10 to 12 is probably a good estimate. I don't remember everything we've done.
Did you get a lot of pushback from people when you're like, hey, we got to put on a show, we've got to do it online? Was there pushback from traditionalists that were like, we can't do this, this is not the forum to do it?
No. Go ahead, Tanner.
So our Christmas pageant, for example, we had planned it in person. It was supposed to be in person, and then middle of November, the government shut everything down. So it was a very quick, like, we have like 3 weeks to get every contestant to record their numbers, put it online, figure out how we're going to charge a ticket price. And some of the traditionalists were not. The problem with online is that people, how do I put this? People of an older generation sometimes struggle with online, so they weren't able to participate as much this year. But it definitely widened our demographic with the younger crowds, because it was such an accessible way for them to watch drag during COVID. We weren't the only ones doing online shows, but within the city here, but it brought out most of the time I had no idea who was watching the show. I'm used to our court shows where we know everybody in the audience, and then suddenly we're like, who are these people? Who's that? Yeah. I've never met them before. So we didn't get a lot of pushback, because at the time it was our only option. If we wanted to be able to continue with naming our title holders and raising money, we had no choice but to move forward with online. So nobody fought us on it.
The nice thing with it too was, and I mean, it's not just within the ISCWR, but online drag had no choice, or drag had no choice but to go online, and it unlocked so much creativity out of people. Like the videos that they put together, their editing, the way that they did all of it was unbelievable. Like it's like they were meant to do that their entire lives, was online drag, and it opened up so many opportunities to like run to a different location and do this shot and get that shot, and screen wipes and all that kind of stuff. And it was definitely a different world and a different view of drag, but I don't think in any way it was a bad way. It was a different way, and I don't think that online drag and performances are really going to go anywhere now that people know that they can do them. I think, and I hope I'm not wrong, I think that people are going to still put together, art pieces and put them, on Facebook and share them with people and put them online for people to enjoy. I hope, at least.
Yeah. Well, even just talking about the previous 3 queens who were on Tales of the LGBTQ plus before, Godiva, Vanity Fair, and your drag mother, To Kill a Mockingbird, they talked about having now to do performances on camera, and Tequila, numerous camera angles where she got to roll around on her bed for the one that she delivered for us. But, we have Godiva going into the black and white, doing her interpretation of drag. And then Vanity having she went on location where she did a slower song that looked at the valley itself, and it just added so much to the performance itself. So I do agree with you. I hope that visual element that's been discovered doesn't go away. Having said that, I'm craving in-person drag and the witty banter. I crave that, but drag can be done in so many different ways.
Yeah.
I guess going into this interview here tonight, I knew that both of you had done tremendous work this past year in getting things up and running, continuing the titles. But there was a worry on my part a little bit that perhaps this year could be considered a lost year in some ways. I'm not getting that whatsoever, though, from our conversation tonight. I'm seeing this enhancement and where drag is going. What excited you the most about your legacy that's going to be the 45th year?
I think what excites me the most with for legacy wise is I hope that we leave a legacy of resilience. There was a lot of people that were like, "You're not going to be able to do anything this year." Even Reign 44 really struggled for those few months of COVID that they had to figure out what to do, and I hope that we showed people that even faced with a major adversity that would normally shut organizations down, and it did. We're one of the few Canadian courts that elected new monarchs who ran a full year during COVID. And it just showed them that if we can figure it out, you can figure it out. Like that's the biggest thing. There's so many different ways that we can do things, and I hope that if something along the line, if another Reign faces adversity like this, that they find the creativity to make it work.
Tanner literally took, like, that was the perfect way to say it, was resiliency. It was, if anybody can take anything away from this year, or if we had a legacy to say, it would be, yes, they fucking did. Like it happened. Like they made it work. And, I think it showed to anybody, rather than just like throwing your hands up and giving up. Not saying that other people did that. Some people didn't necessarily think or look or just kind of, was like, you know what, let's take this as a chance to regroup and do things better. But, we push forward. Maybe our legacy is bullheadedness and stubbornness. But I think resiliency is a great phrase.
I think another word we can throw into there is adaptability. We spent a lot of our year thinking, we both honestly thought that we would get maybe 3 months of COVID online shows and then we would move back to normal. We didn't expect to not see our upper house for 7 months straight because we weren't allowed to leave our homes.
Well, and even walking into it, because, leading up to actual coronation and us, and voting and all that kind of stuff, we had done park shows. We had done things where we were able to be out there, and even though it was distant, still around people, and the bars were still open, we could still go to Evolution and have a drink. We got to sit at a table and chat with our friends and have that as a new experience. We're like, oh, this is going to be fine. Like, it's not going to be what we thought, but that's okay. And then, Lady COVID shut everything down, and we were like, oh.
Mm-hmm.
But
I'm going to throw something in for the court that I went to go see the legendary Twiggy last fall. She had her one-woman show. It was nice to get out for a little bit. I loved the fact that we were able to put the tips in the jar at our table, because then we got to just bask in the show and not have that taken away, which I'm going to say sometimes when it comes out with tips, sometimes people forget those things.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes the show is forgotten. So there's things that can be learned from the year that can definitely be moved forward in the future.
Well, that's even our plan for Coronation. Just as a COVID protocol, like normally when Emperor and Empresses step down, you have the big tip lines in the back, and then you have all the people handing you money. We've put a very strict rule in this year that no hand-to-hand tipping, just for safety of everybody. So there should be no reason for there to be this gigantic line, because you walk up, you put your money in a hat if you want to tip, and you walk away, and then that money goes into a Ziploc bag and then goes to us after we perform. So I'm hoping that people can experience our numbers more, and it's not so much just watching people take tips all night.
Yeah. And at times it does get distracting, like towards the end of a number, especially if you're sitting at a table, all you're seeing at a coronation is just like the lineup or whatever, if it's, if the stage or the, you're kind of like on the lower level. But the COVID protocols this year, everybody's going to get a bottle of hand sanitizer and a Ziploc baggie full of loonies. I don't know, but
hey, all is good. I love it. Hey, you mentioned Coronation, so let's get to 1 week from
Saturday.
2 days from now. So we're just a little over a week. Coronation, Saturday, August 14th, 2021. Tell us more about Coronation itself, what it means to both of you, and how people can be involved in it.
I guess we'll start with the logistics of Coronation this year. So normally Coronation is held at a hotel. We have a big grand ballroom. We have a catered dinner. Me and Carrie were not about that life. It costs way too much money, and our money needs to go to our students.
And we didn't even know if it was going to happen or not, like if we were going to be able to even do an in-person one, right?
Yeah, there's that too. We didn't know if we'd be able to have an in-person Coronation. So we rented the Westmount Community Hall. We have a hot dog food truck coming. It's going to be way more laid back. Tickets are only $30 compared to our average of usually $80. So it can be even people who have maybe a lower income are able to attend this event and enjoy this evening with us. And it will be filled with performances from the Stepping Down Upper House, some command performances that we all gave out, Entertainer of the Year, and then the giving away of 24 bursaries. So logistically, that's everything you need to know. Starts at 5. Tickets are on our website. As to what Coronation means to me, it feels weird this year. I think because we spent so long just sitting at home, not seeing people, not being able to do our traveling, it doesn't feel like it's ready to end. I feel like we just got started. Mm-hmm. So it's bittersweet for me this year. I'm excited to be able to take a break and just focus on my job a little bit. Not that I can really do that because I'm now the college president for the organization, but it gives me a little bit more of a break and a chance to step back. But I feel like there's so much more that I want to do. So it's bittersweet in the sense, yeah, we get to celebrate and have a good time and give our money away, but I'm just not ready for it to end yet. Carrie?
I agree. I'm definitely not ready for it to end. It is very bittersweet. It was a great way to say it. It feels like it's just starting, even though we're coming to the end of it. Coronation for me is always a really, even this year, and I mean, yes, it's definitely much different this year, but Coronation is, not just our coronation, but like other cities' coronations. We didn't get to travel at all this year, and usually, you try and go to as many as you can and get to see your friends and your family from across Canada, across the U.S. And it's something that really was missed this year, and I'm glad that people are going to be able to come to Edmonton. We're going to be able to see some of our family from across the country, and that'll be really nice. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. It definitely doesn't feel like we're there, and even though it's already August,
I think it's also weird for us because we moved Coronation up a week.
We did for Celine Dion, who didn't come. Yeah,
to accommodate for a concert that got postponed. So yeah, it just feels like it's coming really fast, and I'm just not ready.
Yeah.
For the YouTube watchers, I have a website here, and I'm going to mention it here for our audio listeners. To learn more information about the Imperial Sovereign Court of the Wild Rose, www.iscwr.ca. This is an old link, but it's going to send you to the new one as well. What can people find on this website?
So on the website, you can find details about the current reign, what we've done up until this point, a little bit of history. You can find when we have bursary applications open, you can find links to the bursary, which was our chosen charity of the year. You can find past houses and past like titles, like lower house titles, upper house titles. You can find a list of the board. You can find a few pictures scattered here and there. The new website is quite fantastic, actually. You can find links to our websites, so like our Facebook, as well as, if I'm not mistaken, and I believe Tashina's in the background, to the to the Eventbrite and stuff like that as well. There's lots, like so many things about the web, about on our website or about us.
Just letting everybody know that on Facebook, simply type in ISCWR. Join the group. You're going to be able to find more information, find out how you can be involved in whichever way that is, and perhaps be inspired with what has come before, and there will be little Tanners and Carries who will be part of the court in the future, which is always a good thing. Speaking of which here, I'm going to say this out loud because I know these things to be true and everything, that, you can't run or you can't announce that you're doing stuff in the future. I get it. I know there's rules and there's pomp and circumstance. But even if it comes to a head nod, I think both of you have unfinished business in many ways. And so could we see a Tanner Steele carried away sometime years from now, perhaps, when it comes to taking part in the way that you have this past year?
For me, it's a guarantee. There's a lot of things that I missed out on and that I really want to do. I, no offense to Carrie, but I would really like to do it with Kenya. But the only deal she made me is that I have to marry her first, because she's really mad that after 4.5 years I still haven't proposed yet. So it will come. Once we're married, just wait. The campaign will happen.
Some behind the scenes. Carrie?
I mean, I would love to do it again. This year felt incomplete in some ways, not incomplete in the fact that we didn't do enough, but I wish there were so many more things. We talked about doing, production shows. We had all these ideas for production shows that never got to come to fruition, and, and really kind of get the full experience rather than the virtual experience. I would definitely do it.
Tashina Thompson, this year propelled the ISCWR into a new age and is definitely not a lost year.
Just so you know, Tashina Thompson is Kenya Do It.
Oh, well, and here we go. And this just came up as a comment here as well. I love this live feature. Why are you doing things live? It's for things like this. So Kenya/Tashina wrote just right now, give me a ring and you'll get another crown. So you heard it here first on Tales of the LGBTQ+. So we've got exclusives everywhere. How could you break her heart, right?
I know.
Hey, this time being spent together, getting to know a little bit about both of you, a little bit about your drag, why you came into being, your year. We've only been able to touch on just a little bit, but I appreciate both of you coming here and sharing your honesty, and just, it's exciting what you were able to do. People are able to buy tickets. You do not have to be part of the International Court itself. We should make mention here, though, that Coronation next week is also your step down, because there are people who are running in your place for next year. Can you tell us a little bit about the voting and what happens to be able to anoint the Empress and Emperor for 46?
Yeah, so voting is happening on August 13th, Friday the 13th, at the Westmount Community Hall. We have a little in and out of town show that night where local performers and our out of town guests are able to perform if they obviously don't have an opportunity to at Coronation. Voting is from 5 to 8 p.m. Doors for the show, the doors open at 5 for the show as well. It starts at 6. All you need to vote is a valid photo ID.
From Alberta.
From Alberta. You have to be a Northern Alberta resident to vote. And you can vote yes or no to our two candidates, Godiva and Rob.
Yeah. And we should also mention Northern Alberta in this case involves Red Deer North. It's not just north of Edmonton as well. So if you are in that abyss that is between Red Deer and Edmonton, please come up and put in your vote. So the people of Rimbey, step up. People of Drayton Valley, step up. And all those good things. Plus, that is also my birthday. And as I mentioned in the last episode, my birthday gift that I would love to receive is for everybody to vote for Godiva and Rob. If you must. No, absolutely. Two wonderful people who will definitely take the reins that both of you have guided the court through this past year and lead it forward even more in their own style and way. And I put in a way there. Excellent. I was witty and I didn't even mean to be. So there we go. Thank you both for being here tonight. It's an open invitation whenever you want to come back and share news. Hey, an engagement, an update would be great as well. I've never met Kenya, but good Lord, I'm all about the pressure, the peer pressure.
I was going to say, I'm sure you would love to hear our how we ended up getting together because it actually involves the court. So maybe one day we'll have to all sit down together.
Perfect. That is a plan. And we'll do that with Carrie with the meeting of her husband as well.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure.
Yes. I'm sure everybody would love to hear how Carrie and Chad met.
We weren't, we definitely weren't involved. Well, yeah, we weren't involved in the court at the time, but it's not PG. That's
okay. We have Tales of the LGBTQ plus After Dark premiering in a few weeks with special guest Carrie Dewey. So we'll do that. Perfect. Thanks you all for being here tonight. For everyone listening at home, thank you once again for taking the time to listen to another episode plus. Reminding you to please subscribe. Please provide some type of feedback that will help us with the algorithms when it comes to Apple, Spotify, word of mouth. If you enjoyed what you heard tonight, copy the link, send it to the best friends. Perfect. There's nothing wrong with that. That's for sure. Because it's our stories, and it's these stories that have never been put down onto the written page, but we're able to listen to them. And there's nothing better than that. So on behalf of Steele, Empress, Carrie Dewey, my name is Douglas Parsons. Thanking you all for being here tonight, reminding you to be good and always text when you get home. Until next time, everybody.